Hello, everyone. This is Bill Houston from Our Crowd Rocks and Lynn P from By the Block. And we're back today to have a show. And our show today is going to feature who is a 25-year contractor and real estate investor, founder of New Legacy Reentry Corporation. So I'd like everyone to say hello so we can go ahead and get started with the show. You want to introduce yourself a little bit, Lynn?
Lynn from By the Block. Hi, everyone.
My name is Paul.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Paul Nelson from Level of Excellence Construction Company, also New Legacy Reentry Corporation. And I am pleased and excited to be here and part of this By the Block.
Okay, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about your 25-year career in the building trades and as a real estate investor?
Well, let me just go back just a little bit, if it's okay, Bill. Just tell you just a little bit about my background. My background wasn't in real estate up until like 1999. Prior to that, we've been in business with all different types of businesses, supermarkets, and I'm from Pittsburgh. So we've had a lot of training about businesses and how to run businesses and how to really and truthfully cater to your customer. So when I came into the construction field, to me, I brought all of that training and things with me, and realizing that even when I wasn't working for the colleges in Pittsburgh, which were still important, I've done a numerous amount of jobs and just different things for a lot of people. Like when I came here, I must have done 30 basements. One of my basements was 1,800 square foot basement. The house was. And also along with these from 2008 when the market fell and my credit score was real good and I had a good relationship with the banks, before I knew it, within the next 5 years, I had 30 tenants and had 22 pieces of property, fourplexes. I had brand new duplexes that people had lost, and I was able to go in and rehab them and bring a lot of the training, bring a lot of the equipment, the commercial equipment, is to get the job done a whole lot faster in residential, working with residential rehabbing. So many things that I think once we start putting a team together, is that my company is called Level of Excellence. And as long as we can do a good job serving whoever we have to serve to get things done, we have software at Level of Excellence that allows us to put timelines together. So there's a lot of things that I brought from, I'll say, my childhood and all these other businesses, is to be able to incorporate them into the construction field. So I'm excited. My passion was always businesses, but I really have a passion for construction.
Well, thank you for that. Let's take a step back because one of the things that we definitely want to see are local businesses created in our communities. Why don't you tell us a little of your experiences about working communities and what that was like as a business owner, relating to the community itself, and saw yourself as a business owner communities?
Well, even when we talk about the construction field, for me, all the training, even with the owners who we're going to help train to get their own businesses, there's something that I was raised with, and the customer was always right. No matter if they was always wrong, 100% wrong, they were the customer. And it was my job to make sure that they felt that they wanted to have. So with that being said, it takes a lot for a person who hasn't been raised like I've been raised to really be able to continuously deliver. And as I tell people, our whole thing at New Legacy is entrepreneurship. But along with whatever desire that you have to be in business for yourself, to even invest in purchasing homes and in flipping houses and all the rest of that stuff, along with the whatever reason that sent you to have that as a passion or a career, one thing comes is that people look at either the money part of it, or they look at the time that they think that they'll gain from investing in houses and flipping houses. And what I want to tell people, and what I've been able to tell even my students, is that that word sacrifice lives right up there with everything. You have to be willing to sacrifice. And the things that you have to find out really what your passion is and what drives you. But to me, it's just natural to be able to wait on the customers, to put things in order, to have a computer that allows you to put profit, overhead, and contingencies. When I'm bidding for the colleges, like I did in Pittsburgh, I ripped out dorms and things like that. Carnegie Mellon University, which is a real prestigious college in Pittsburgh. We did almost all the work, or a lot of the work inside with the other, and we bid it against union companies. But it was the moment that you sit down with a person and your demeanor reassures them, and then your track record reassures them that you can handle the job. You can finish the job, and it'll be finished in a timely fashion. So there's so much that comes with this thing called business and entrepreneurship, Mr. Houston.
Well, thank you for your insights. So,
I'm sorry, you say, Lynn?
I was going to say, I have a question for you. And when it comes to actually, starting a job for a contractor, let's say, for instance, a homeowner would like to rehab their home. What is the most tedious process and the most costly process? Can you verify, what would be the most tedious process, time-consuming process, or what's the most cost?
Now, Lynn, you broke up a little bit. You're asking me, so when I meet someone new and I sit down with them, you say, what's the most tedious process?
Yes.
It is putting the bid together. And see, that comes with experience. And as you know, Lynn, working on rehabbing houses is not the same as working on new houses, because sometimes, or all the time. I was going to say sometimes, and then a lot of times, and I'll say all the time. Whenever you go into someone's house to be able to bid on it, there's always so many unforeseen things. This last project that I've been on has been the most costly, and I cannot understand what has happened. But in some respects, I'm getting a handle on it. Is because it was a project that all of my subs and people that I had working with me that I knew about, they were all busy. So I had to undertake so much things myself. And before I knew it, the people that I was trying to get to help me weren't qualified. And I had to go over and over and over things that they should have taken care of. But when I meet somebody new, it's really and truthfully like a resume that I have. I have a whole lot of signed information. I have things about New Legacy. About level of excellence. We're a 5-star, A+ rated with the I'm going to say down in Brad Street, but with the
Better Business Bureau.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Lost for words. With the Better Business Bureau. So it takes time to build those things up. And we've been incorporated since 1999. When I say incorporated, and paying taxes since 1999 as level of excellence construction. So the most tedious thing is being able to put together a comprehensive bid that allows you to have a profit and overhead and then a contingency. Now, that was always the way I did with new properties. Doing rehabbing, I get a much better, since I've done so many houses, I get a much better feeling and able to bid a little bit differently.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. Appreciate that.
Yes, so maybe to follow that up a little bit, once you get into a house to rehab it, you go about the project management portion of it and putting together a timeline on that timeline.
Well, you know what, Bill, what I was saying to you before, and I've been doing this, gosh, maybe since 1999. The way I was raised, whenever you go to do anything as far as business is concerned, there has to be a bottom line. Now that I'm in the reentry form of another part of our business, there is something called the double bottom line. We have to make money when we finish a job, but inside of New Legacy, there's something called community equity. So our money goes right back into training, right back into purchasing either new projects or doing new projects, but most of it goes back into the community. And that's where my passion is now.
Okay, so if you had to make a recommendation, maybe to a new block developer, what would be the 3 most important things from your experience about and look at before bringing a property as a developer?
Bill, I'm sorry, you broke up. You were saying if I was to entertain someone coming in to do a block development,
and you had to suggest to them, 3 to 5 of the most important things that they need to do before they try to develop, what would you say those would be?
Well, first of all, they go and see who I am and what I bring to the table. And then, like I said, I have a ton of people who wrote testimonials for me and stuff like that. The other things, I would need to know what's their bottom line in the respects, what do they want out of the project? And then I like to find out how much experience that they have inside of the project, because everyone always expects you to be able to go in and wave a wand and things just happen. And it doesn't work that way. Now, we were real conservative is because when we did those 22 houses in 5 years, talk about fourplexes and those duplexes, we didn't have to gut everything, gutting by I mean tearing out everything, but we had to laminate, go over existing plaster walls and things like that. And that was done with me and one other guy with me, and then a lot of subs, Bill. I've learned that I need to have subs, credible subs, and then I need to know how to manage them. So you need to, first things first, whenever you know and your subs know that money is available and they're not just coming to bid a job, that makes it makes things different with them and for them. So there's a plethora of things that has to take place, but I need to know their temperament and what they're looking at. I need to know how their money is running for real, and then how they set things up, maybe to sell the property, or if they're going to lease the property or rent the property out. There's all kinds of things that you need to know just to get a feel for them. Just like if you were to go down and do someone's house or do someone's basement, you would sit and talk to them and get an understanding of what they were trying to do. And you get some people who want to do things in houses, Bill, who are dirt cheap and don't want this to be done and that to be done. See, that's not the way I operate. I put in new windows for the most part, almost all the houses, new roofs if it needs it, HVAC system. I get everything expected. We do, we run PEX instead of copper. I do, there's just a ton of things that I would do. So it keeps everybody from having to go back and revisit this property, especially if it's a Section 8 property where you're going to get people to come in to inspect. You know what Section 8 demands. You need a relationship with them. Those are the other things, is that depending on what you want to do, then you need to know the people who are going to say yay or nay to you, and they look at your experience. So there's a lot of things that those 5 things that you talked about. There's a lot more that you would bring to the table, and that comes from an initial visit and just some questions to find out who they are and what they're looking to do.
Okay. Great. If you had one advice to give to someone who is starting on their first property, 19-year-old, they want to do their first property, they want to do a fix and flip, what's that one piece of advice you would give to that 19-year-old about getting started?
Lynn, I'm trying to think, because see, I train so many people, and very few of them are 19, and they have the 19-year-old, they have a different temperament about everything. They just have a different temperament. I guess my whole thing, honestly, I would have to, it's always good for me versus even being on the phone, is to look at somebody and talk to them. There's things that come out of me to ask that I don't even know that I'm asking, Lynn and Bill, until I've already asked them. But for a young person, all they see is the money. They'll make either 10,000 or how much ever money that they think they're going to make. They got to understand about comps in the area. They got to understand there's a lot of things that that buying property, there's a lot more to it. Let me just say this, even that 19-year-old person, I have to look at a lot of things about them. But Lynn, from what I've seen with me and with a lot of other people, if you don't have, to me, I'm saying 5, 6 properties, and I'm saying minimum in some respects, is because if you have to move people out, if you got people who are not paying on your rent that you have to get them evicted, if 2 or 3 of those things happen and you've got to pay $600 a month for those notes and you only got this and that, and you can't evict anybody that day and get somebody else in. And then when you go to evict somebody, you always got to refix things up. And if you're going to do Section 8, Section 8 has to approve it. So you got to probably put new carpets and stuff in, and it just depends on a whole lot of things. That one house to flip, I would give them, I would make sure my word was what it would be as far as it was going to take to flip that. But if a person was going into this to either use it for income coming in, there's a whole lot of things that would enter my conversation with them, Lynn. It really, and then it's always about their equity or the money that they have, how stable or how liquid could they be if stuff happens.
Okay.
And there's just a whole lot to it. To me, having one house and being able to flip it, it's a real gamble. As long as I can come in where I need to come in. Here's the other thing too, Bill, and we talked about that. You really got to pay attention to who you're giving your money to. Mm-hmm. That's why I said I have tons and tons of testimonies. I have people that you could call on the phone right now that would I don't have to go and run from anybody. And I've been here since 2004. But Lynn, and Bill, there's been so many people that say they can do this and they'll be able to do that, but they don't perform. And see, the problem too with contractors, if you get a contractor who maybe have 2 or 3 jobs going on, and depends on how they bid them and what their temperament was when they bid them initially, if one of those falls down, then you hear those horror stories all the time. So there's a lot to it. They're really and truthfully, and I wish I had an answer, Lynn, that I could say for a 19-year-old. I would have to really talk to him, and not to persuade him one way or another. I would let him know what I'm able to do, the timeline I'm able to do. If there's going to be anything that looks like it's not going to work, see, and here's the other thing too, with my bidding, it is a line item bid. So it tells you how many pieces of drywall I would put up or how many pieces of ceramic tile I'm going to put down. It's so intricate. It tells you those things. So if there's something like a change order, it would be because of something that we did not bid on. And I would be able to give those conversations to a person early on to just be able to explain a lot of, especially to a 19-year-old Bill and Lynn. I'm hoping I'm making sense, because I think I'm nervous.
That's fine. You're doing just fine.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a great job. I think some of the issues that you bring about, I think that By the Block will be able to address some of those issues. And what I mean by that is one of the issues that with this crowd investment platform won't necessarily have the lack of access to capital. The projects will be capitalized as they need to be capitalized. Mm-hmm. It sounds like some of the issues that I'm hearing from you, finding qualified people to actually work on the properties. Mm-hmm. And because when you speak about that community equity, the things that we're looking at is producing jobs, so that people can actually work on these projects, make some money, and become block investors as well, working on these. Because there's a huge opportunity with a platform like By the Block, this circular flow where you have people who bring projects, the contractors who actually these create a workforce, and as time goes on, that workforce becomes trained. People who become trained themselves to grow. What we're trying to do is we're really trying to tap experience and your knowledge to see what the realities are out there, and I think you've done a great job.
Well, Bill,
some of the reality.
Because you were going in and out a bit, but let me explain to you about that part of what New Legacy and Level of Excellence does. We have been able to train about 100 and maybe 50 people this particular year, not this fiscal year. That's going last year in this month of January. But we are able to get our students something called the NCCER curriculum, and we're also able to get them OSHA and CPR training. But what we're trying to do, because we get them for 8 weeks, we are trying to get them trained, so we get a chance to find out if they're on time. We get a chance to have conversations with them, especially about entrepreneurship. We get a chance to ask them, maybe for the first time in their lives, have you ever owned your home, and how you can go about owning your home. Now, this is all in construction, so it has nothing to do with the certification, but it has to do with New Legacy's passion is to help them to start to dream. And we believe with By the Block and all these other things that you guys are putting together, it'll allow them for the first time to be able to see some things that are actually working in their community. That's what's important to me, is that you get so many people, young people especially, they need to see it in order to be able to seize it, to grab a hold of it. And they need to understand how community equity works. And that's something that it just hasn't been prevalent in the community, in our community. That's why I'm so excited, is that once we're able to create models that work, then it's an easier sell. And I use that word or that term loosely, but it's an easier way to explain or to sell what they're looking for, but they don't know because there's nobody around doing these things, especially with By the Block and having community involvement and community equity, which creates pride inside of your community. Bill, was that?
Absolutely. I found myself a lot of times conversations with people, especially talking about funding over the last 5 or 6 years, really wanting to bring crowdfunding into our community, a lot of our political and economic issues. And one of the things that I had never been able to say was that now there is By the Block, opportunity for us to come together and to pool our resources as peers in the rebuilding of our communities, to invest, creating entrepreneurship and self-sustaining businesses in our community. I'd like to touch on that just a little bit, go back into your experiences. One of the things that wants to do, and it has an initiative, is to create nail spas in our community. So many of our women use these nail spas, but it's leakage. That's money that's leaving our community. So the initiative, and maybe Lynn can speak to this a little clearer, the initiative is for us to create these nail spas and for us to understand that if we own the businesses and support the businesses in our community, that keeps money in our community and that builds the community equity. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, for those many years that you lived in Pittsburgh, what is some advice that you can give to the young ladies who are going into owning their own nail spas?
Was that addressed to Lynn?
Really, what I'm asking you is if you could maybe give some of these young ladies who are preparing to own these nail salons, some advice on like I know one of the things that you're really big on is about customer service. If you could just give them some real world experiences that you've had on what it's like owning a business and how you need to do to be successful in small inner city business.
You're asking me that, Bill?
Yes, Paul. That's a question.
I'm sorry. I thought you had mentioned Lynn when you talked about nail spas. Let me say this. My stepfather was white and Jewish, and he married my mom, who's an African-American woman, dark complexion. He loved my mom. He loved the ground that she walked on. He divorced his family, his wife and 3 kids, and married my mom and took on my sister and myself. Now, this is back during the day. So it wasn't anything like it is today. It wasn't normal and natural to do those things. But what he taught me, that's why I was explaining early on, is that the customer is always right. Is that you need, and this was without Facebook and all the rest of the media that we have today, you need to serve your customers. You need to be at your customers' beck and call all the time. Well, see, that I was raised around that. Even when we have businesses, even the nail spas, it makes no difference. You must serve your customer. You must, I explained to my wife before we moved here to Louisville, Kentucky, I said, Gisela, if we don't sell anything at all in Louisville, what we have to sell is service. It's because it's a lost commodity. So I was trained and raised in that. It's like the media right now, the social media, it exemplifies that to the degree is you can't be angry with someone or they're going to badmouth you all over the place. So you must, the people in your employ must learn how to wait on your customers. So all those things are running a small business. It's even more. And then here's another thing, is that even servicing the community, even with the real estate and all the rest of the things that we're talking about, is that you got to serve your customers. You have to. And what I was, even with when I'm talking to a lot of the people that we train for our training program, the ones that want to be in business, is, I told you, I explained to them about that whole thing called you got to be willing to sacrifice. Is because if that's your passion, that's what you do, but you got to wait on your customers. And some way, somehow, we have to help people out of this mom and pop attitude or relationship that they have with their clientele. I mean, with their customers. So there's a lot of things you gotta stay on your job as being an entrepreneur. And that's something that needs to be trained consistently as we move forward, Bill.
Thank you for those insights. As we come to a close here, what could you give us a little some takes on what it's like being an investor? You've talked a lot about the construction side. You've given us some of your experiences as a business owner. As an investor, you see yourself and some of the programs that you're doing maybe 3 to 5 years into the future, since there is a platform like By the Block?
You know, Bill, I always say I have enough imagination, and I'm always telling people I'm pregnant with a million ideas. I don't try to go after them all, but I know we're a faith-based organization, and I know we have the power to speak those things that are not as though they are, because they already are. And it is, I just thought it is so marvelous of the things that By the Block is bringing to the table. It's such a wonderful deal to have a person like Lynn that has her own portal, to also be African American, to have her own portal, which is regulated by the SEC. We have a relationship. We have a signed relationship with 121 cities. We do here at New Legacy. So the dreaming part of all of this is endless, absolutely endless. But what we have to do is put it in proper perspective and find out how we're going to manage all the things that we are talking about. It's because the things that we're talking about is not just for Louisville. The things that we're talking about, once people are able to see things, once we're able to show people that this By the Block, this community equity, this empowering of the people is real. Once we're able to show them and demonstrate this, then I don't know where we're going to end up, Bill. Sometimes it's overwhelming to even a guy like me. So I'm just really excited. And Lynn, I'm really excited that you and Bill have hooked up together or partnered together, and even allowed me to bring just some of the things that I've done and to be on the air. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much, Paul, for coming on. We greatly appreciate that. We greatly appreciate your insights and information. Having been in business for many, many years, and having been, in the construction and real estate investment business for over 25 years. We hope that the experiences that you've shared today online will help people to see the value of By the Block and allow them to come and avoid some of the pitfalls we've already spoken about. I'm grateful about that.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, Paul, for all your great, expertise and bringing your experience to the table. We absolutely appreciate you for doing that today. You shared a lot of good information for anyone who wants to be a developer or even the investor on both sides of the equation. And look forward to definitely working with you on the long term and rallying our community.
I appreciate you. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Yes.
Guys.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, as we close here, make sure you're back at 2:00 Eastern time next week. We'll have a link for you so you can come to the show, share the show with your friends, Tell everybody about it. Next week, we will have Josh Poe on about redlining and how redlining has impacted our communities in a very negative way, and how By the Block solution to help us reverse some of the trends of redlining.
Okay.
Make sure you share us, talk about us, and we will see you next week, Eastern Time. Thank you, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks again.